Our next guest served as White House press secretary for President Biden. She now hosts Inside with Jen Psaki, which airs Sundays at noon and Monday nights at 8 on MSNBC. Please welcome to the show, Jen Psaki, everyone. Well, let's just get started.
What a time to be alive in our country.
What a time to not be the press secretary.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Are you happy? Do you have empathy for Karine, who is currently doing your former job?
Of course. I mean, I worked very closely with Karine. I stay in touch with a lot of the staff. A lot of them worked for me. And I actually think a lot about the team there and on the campaign and how hard this is. I mean, most of them don't entirely know what exactly is happening or what's going to happen. None of us do. But they also were just working really hard to defeat Donald Trump, and it's difficult. So I have empathy, but I would definitely rather be here with you than answering hundreds of questions about how many times a neurologist visited the White House. No question about it.
Those are not the right kind of questions you want to be asked. And I will say, you know, certainly during the Trump era, I feel as though press conferences were on my, TV screen all day long, right? That was a big part of covering it.
Like,
because
how much bleach should I inject?
Yes, exactly.
What should happen?
There's been less of that in the Biden era, but now, of course, it's changed. Now I feel like everybody is sort of watching everything that's being said. Is that a bad sign for an administration when press conferences become must-see TV?
Well, I mean, if it was must-see TV in the country and the press secretary was explaining, here's what we're doing on your health care and infrastructure, then it would be a good thing. But people don't tune into that. So, no, it's not a good sign when everybody's taking it live and the questions are predominantly about the president's health and well-being.
Yes.
That is not a good sign on how things are going.
And certainly the fallout from this debate has been, considerable. And how do you feel the White House is handling the fallout? Is this how you would be doing it? We haven't seen, obviously, too much of the president. We saw him, speak very, very well about NATO, and obviously he's doing a press conference that, will have happened before people are seeing this. I'm sorry. We're doing this 3 days ago. No.
There's a press conference that is high stakes, I heard earlier in the show.
Stakes.
Very high stakes.
But how are they handling it, do you think?
Well, first, I think it's important for people to know, and you know this, I mean, presidents, when you're advising a president, I've advised 2 presidents, you don't just walk in there and say, I think you should do this, and they say, great, thank you for your idea, I'm going to go out and do it now. That's not how it operates.
They're like, today's Jen's calls the shot.
Today's Jen's day, anything she wants to do. So what people should understand is there's a lot of advisors who may be telling him, here's what you should be doing. You should be out there more. You should be doing more events. You should be engaging with people. He's clearly not doing that. That's one of the reasons why it's such a high-stakes press conference. Everybody keeps using that phrase, as you said, because the pressure is on it. They haven't seen him a lot. At the same time, it's also your job when you're advising a president to bring out their magic. I know that's a weird way of saying it, but President Biden's magic is not necessarily press conferences. I think it's safe to say. It's not even really necessarily interviews. It's his interactions with people. He's incredibly empathetic. He cares about, he loves to hold babies. He legitimately loves them. He likes to travel with members of Congress. Said no one ever except for Joe Biden. So that you're not seeing. And because you're not seeing and the public is not seeing him and the magic of Joe Biden, you're relying on how is he going to answer the 9th question about his mental acuity at a press conference. And in that sense, the strategy is not going well. Can I say one more thing about the strategy? Is that nobody knows the path forward. And members of Congress and people who are rooting for him want to know, how do you win this race? How do you defeat Donald Trump? People just want a little something to go with, and they don't have it.
It's interesting you say that because, of course, one of the things about Donald Trump is, he speaks all the time that you sort of forget how crazy he sounds. That if Donald Trump, what Donald Trump did yesterday, he was the only time we'd seen him in the last 2 months, you'd be like, what the is wrong with that guy?
You would be like, what the is wrong with that guy?
He just floods the zone.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things working against President Biden is because we see him, less, you just put so much more into what you're seeing. You mentioned members of Congress, obviously they're out there questioning as well. They don't know. At the same time, they seem to say we need to know whether he's going to stay in or stay out. And he's been very clear with that answer.
I mean, this is the craziest thing happening in Washington right now. And I live there and I love Washington. But where members of Congress are doing these carefully worded, painful statements, a lot of them that are like, I believe in Joe Biden, and I know he's going to make the right decision for our democracy, right? And then he's saying, I'm running, I have no plans of dropping out. And then they're still saying the next day, I believe he's going to make the right choice. And he's saying, I have no plans to not run for president. How does this end is sort of the question
Right.
here.
It does seem by the fact that they keep pressing that they obviously there's an answer they want to hear that is not the one he keeps giving.
Correct. And he's like, no, guys, I've made my decision. I'm continuing to run. It's a little bit of a circle.
There, it does seem like, were he not to, the options would obviously be Vice President Harris. There's a lot of governors' names that get floated. Like, is there even a way that people are sort of talking behind closed doors about who they think would have a better chance against Donald Trump?
There's lots of talking behind closed doors right now in Washington and around the public. I mean, I'm sure for July 4th, I would try to change the subject with my family and friends to other things. And it was like, yeah, life is fine. What's going to happen with this election? And I think a lot of people are experiencing that. The vice president is the clear alternative for a range of reasons. She is the vice president, first of all. She could use all the money. She could take all the money from the campaign and campaign on it. I think she's an undervalued communicator as well. And she would be the first African-American woman to be a presidential candidate, which is a huge deal. But there's a lot of structural advantages, too. At the same time, you referenced governors, Newsom, Whitmer, Shapiro, Moore. For anybody who feels really dark right now, who's a Democrat, there is an amazing crop of people who are going to be running if there's a democracy still around in a couple of years. That is the good thing. But it's harder for them because they would have to inject themselves in and argue that they should skip over the vice president, that they can raise the same amount of money, that they can do the they can match the structural advantages. So I think it's more challenging for them.
You mentioned, if we, have a democracy in a few years, we've been talking a lot about this document, Project 2025, because, while we, it's not that we lose our focus. I think what's happening, with the president is serious and requires attention. But Project 2025, this is, the plan of what the Trump administration in its second time around wants to do. Have you ever seen anything like it? How outside the norm is this?
Way crazy, wackadoodle, insane, outside of the norm. When it's 900 pages, it's on the Heritage website, and you can read it should you choose. If you're not asleep just because it's long, it will scare the hell out of you because there's a lot of pieces in there. I mean, overall, there's a lot of things in there like mass deportations, camps, all sorts of things that are frightening and scary and alarming and not who we are. But overall, it's basically a roadmap for Trump becoming all-powerful. It increases the power of the executive branch of government. There's a reason for checks and balances, for 3 branches of government, for judiciary that's independent, so that they can hold people to account. That's what it's there for. He wants to get rid of that so he can go after his political enemies and so that he can use it as a weapon against people he doesn't like or who've done him wrong. If that doesn't scare the hell out of you, I don't know what does. Now, he denies, he denies he knows anything. He says he doesn't know anything about it. Then he says it's bad, and then he wishes them luck.
Yeah.
It's like, what is happening right now? But it is his plan put together by his people who have worked for him before and will work for him again.
Next week we have the RNC. Do you feel as though, because I will say, I do think that this, for as crazy as this Trump campaign has been, it is less crazy than the last one. He does seem to be a little bit more on message.
It's all a bar.
I know. It is. Well, this is what we go back to. Like, he has the easiest bar. It's like, yeah. He was slightly cogent. But do you think the RNC is going to be able to message well the, sort of maybe, I don't know, turmoil within the DNC? Or do you think that we're just going to see a crazy week of events?
I think they will be able to message well because nothing's better for one party than the other party being in a bit of chaos.
Yeah.
There's a bit of chaos going on right now. But they've done something purposeful and alarming, and hopefully people will actually read the fine print and not rely on this. The RNC platform, so the platform for the convention, which is normally dozens of pages, if not longer, is now 16, 17, 18 pages, and it is very shorthanded. Around Russia, Ukraine, it's like, find peace in Europe. I mean, it's just, it's all these things that
Why is that such a bad idea, Jen?
It's basically, We're all for peace in Europe.
Yeah.
It is treating the American public like they don't deserve more detail. And
Yeah.
because more detail is scary, and they know that. But I actually think they'll have a big forum out there for people to watch. They'll excite their base. As crazy and insane and dangerous as Trump is, his base is his base. And these conventions typically dominate, so that's what we should expect next week.
It is a scary time. We have children similar ages. Yours are 8 and 6. Are they of the age yet where they have questions about what's happening with our politics? And are you, as a former press secretary, good at communicating those answers?
Well, I know I want to know what you say to your kids, too. I mean, my husband and I met in Democratic politics, so it's clear where our positions lie, shall I say. But, you know, we don't want our kids to go to camp and say things like Trump is a fascist,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, you have to kind of be careful. My kids do ask questions. My son, who is going to kindergarten next year, tells people, Mommy and Donald Trump hate each other. And I'm like, we don't hate anyone. Hate is a strong word. I don't think he thinks about me. This is the conversation we have.
And meanwhile, Trump's like, I hate her.
I hate her. You might be. But I think about it as kind of, I answer the questions that they have and
Yeah.
I don't go farther, right?
Yeah.
I had my daughter when I was the communications director in the Obama White House. And so we have all these amazing pictures of her with President Obama, kind of in the Oval Office. And my son was born during the Trump administration. And he feels a little kind of
Yeah.
screwed over by that.
Yeah.
Which I kind of understand.
Well, it was bad for a lot of people. Just let them know.
It was a tough period of time.
Thanks so much for being
Thank
here, Jen.
you.
Great talking to
Thank
you.
you.
Jen Psaki, everybody. Inside with Jen Psaki airs Sundays at noon and Monday nights at 8 on MSNBC. You can also see her live in New York on September 7th with other MSNBC hosts on MSNBC Live. I'm Marcus Springfield. We'll be right back in one video.